Welcome to Compass Stories. I'm your host, Veronica Sterling. And my work is centered on helping people who are in the middle of disruption rediscover meaning, strengthen connection, and move forward with courage. I do this through speaking, sharing experiences, and storytelling. I'm grateful that you've joined me for a conversation today. And if it resonates with you, I hope that you will share it with someone else in your life. Thanks for being here. I focus a lot of my message on encouraging people to identify their values and really build clarity in understanding what they are. But how do we do that? How does it happen? And if we have that clarity in our values, how do we take that to the next step of putting them to good use alongside our talents? My guest today is going to help us answer these questions. My guest is Brianna Jackson. She is the founder and principal of The Refining Company, which is a learning and development firm that guides people to understand their values through strength-based development. Brianna encourages her clients and audiences to show up authentically and fearlessly. So this conversation is a little unique because before I sat down with Brianna, I took the Gallup Strengths Assessment. And in our conversation today, she's going to share the results of my assessment with me and teach me how my values and talents can be aligned with each other. I really opened up in this conversation, and I hope that you enjoy having a chance to listen to it. Let's get into it. Brianna, thank you so much for joining me for a conversation today. I've really been looking forward to having this conversation and getting to know you more. Tell the listener a little bit about you.
Well, my name is Brianna, not Brianna. So I always tell people my name does not rhyme with banana. And I am based in Portland, Oregon, and I am a person who, as a Gallup certified Clifton Strengths Coach, really enjoys working with individuals and teams to understand more about their strengths and how they bring those to bear in the workplace. So I am what I, personally call like a workplace cheerleader, and a person that really loves to, help people support or help people to understand more about who they are and how they can really show up well at work. And when I'm not doing that, I'm also a basketball mom. So I have a son who is 17 years old and plays varsity basketball locally. And I'm the taxi. So I'm just driving around and supporting the team wherever we go.
Got it. Yes, I have a handful of friends who are in the basketball or soccer season of their life.
Yeah, it feels like a continual forever. So, it's just one of those things that I just, add to the list of to-dos for the weekdays, the weekends. And I'm just like always on my computer in the car in between practices and games, just working on my work too. But it's great time.
Yeah. That's great. It keeps your life full. So, Brianna, one of the things that I often tell people is that it's very important that we have clarity in our values. And I think that is necessary for us to find authentic self, to use your words, and to kind of move into purposeful work and purposeful living. But what can you teach me about finding my authentic self?
Yeah. So I think that it's really important, as you said, to be able to use your values as a way to be able to guide how it is that we show up in life. So not just at work, which is really my, sweet spot of how it is that I coach and support people, but also just life in general. And one of the value activities that I really enjoy working with is by Brene Brown, and she does this, like, has this value sort activity. And I love the questions that she really prompts people to work through, which is like, does this define me? Is this who I am at my best? And is this a filter that I use to make difficult decisions? I think without that anchoring, we struggle to really be able to figure out, like, oh, yes, I value this or that. We say these things, but what does it really mean? And I think one of the best things that we can do for ourselves is really think about, like, how do we put these ideals, these values, these things into action or into practice. And without questions that really help to guide the work, I think we struggle. And so those questions really can help us to be able to think about, like, no, is this like the aspirational value, or is this the thing that I really actually like pull out of my pocket and use when it's time for me to make a difficult decision, or when it is that I think about how it is that I want to show up. And I give people this example a lot because I walk them through the activity. There's usually a visual that I show that says, okay, it's going to be a busy slide. There's lots of words that are going to come up, but think of these 3 questions as you're, choosing, 3 to 5 values that really speak to you. And I tell them, time is one of the values that's listed on the list. And I was like, that would be an aspirational value for me, because I know that if I live 30 minutes from a location and I need to be there at a certain time, even though I know this, I will still leave later than I need to. I'll still stop for the iced coffee on the way, and then I'll just show up when I show up. Because time is not necessarily something for me that is what I'm using to demonstrate who I am at my best. And it's not that filter that I use to say, okay, do we really need to be there? Or is it like a good idea? And so I think when we stop and ask ourselves these difficult questions, or sometimes difficult questions, it helps us to really think about, like, oh, wait, I can really curate the life that I want by being intentional about how I want to answer these questions, and use, these different, values or things to be able to be my best self.
Yeah. I love that idea of is this actually me, or is it this aspirational version of me? Okay, so here's maybe a harder question. Well, maybe it will be a harder answer for some to hear, depending on what the answer is, I suppose.
I'm nervous now. Okay.
I'm nervous, yeah. I'm trying to think of how I want to ask this. So people who I work with the most are in some kind of disruption in their life. They're navigating grief, becoming a caregiver, unplanned change, unexpected loss, and they are kind of in this resilient pursuit, trying to move forward, redefine meaning for their life, and navigate this new path. But I also talk to a lot of people who tell me that they have something that they yearn to change in their life, and they haven't figured out how to take their talents and shift to something else. But when you said that second question of identifying our values is this me at my best? It just kind of made me immediately wonder if we are stuck, if we are not finding our most purposeful work, or maybe our work is fine, but we're not finding our purpose or passion outside of it, are we betraying our authentic self? Like, are we betraying our values?
You are correct. That is a more challenging question.
I mean, I'm stressed out. Like, I'm
Who turned
stressed
on the
out. I'm
heat?
like, oh my
It's
goodness.
it's a little warm in here. What happened? I think that is such an incredible question. And I think that it is a little tricky. I think both things can be true at the same time, right? Where it's like, I might not know who I am because I'm experiencing this, this change or this,
Okay.
this
Yes.
interruption. Um, but I also might at the same time have a vision of who I desire to be. And so I feel like there are kind of two things that can happen at the same time. We can start with looking at, a set of values or literally just Googling what are values. You can look at companies or look at, even I'm sure there's something online, from Brene Brown that gives more of this information, that you could say, okay, let me just find a set of values. And if you need to start with the who I desire to be, you could, but I also would encourage you to look back and say, what was the last time in which I felt that I was doing the thing that made me feel the best? What was happening? What was my environment like? Right? What did I get to do? Or what are the things that I did not have to do? And then we could start interrogating from that perspective. What are those values that are speaking to me that way? And so I think that using values or trying to just go back to when was a time in which I felt, because that's kind of what I feel like we're often chasing, right? Is this like the glory days, or a time in which I felt really great, or I had this feeling or this idea that that I wanted life to go a certain way, and now I've kind of veered off course. But I love to remind people that like detours still lead to beautiful destinations. Sometimes, often the same place that I was trying to get to, but I'm now just traveling a different path. But there is an end goal in mind. There's somebody that I want to be. And so I don't want to say that aspirational, goals or values are not the things that we should be looking at. But if it's possible, if we are in a good place, which is an interesting phrase to use, but, if we are in a place, to say, um, I do know who it is that I am when I'm at my best, because I'm either thinking about that now or I'm remembering it from a time that's gone. I can, use those values as a way to be able to think about what I want to move into next. So it's not to say that I'm using these values to be able to, choose a new career or to, choose a new path in life. It's just to say that as I'm starting to encounter, different situations, I can choose to stay attached to them or detach from them based on knowing that these are things that I hold close to me. If that makes sense. I'd love to
That,
interrogate that more if
yes.
I need to explain better or differently.
No, that does make sense. So we can think about who do we aspire to be. We can also think about when we have felt maybe the best version of ourselves. And I like that you said it's because of what we did or didn't do in that moment. And then that's all of that is giving us information that can help guide that next step. I think that's what I'm hearing you say, that it is possible to use the information that we have to help get unstuck.
Yes, I think that information that we already have is a really good way to be able to help us get unstuck. But I do recognize that for some folks, if the talk track has been really negative, then it's not going to help me get unstuck, right? And so it's like, so that's the interesting thing. I think that's why it's so helpful to be able to not kind of like suffer in silence, or to work alone, to be able to figure out what a good next step could be. Having trusted people in your life, or having coaches such as like yourself and myself can really be a person with like an outside perspective to really help people to be able to see, like, well, don't say, it's not just a, well, don't say that, be nicer to yourself. It's more of like a, wait, like wait, you're telling me that you're not a creative person, but I just watched you do XYZ, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh, because, and this really is what gets into like, I think like the sweet spot of like the work that I do, which is really around strengths, right? Because what strengths are, is talent, which is your natural way of thinking, feeling, and behaving, multiplied by investment, which is your time spent in like practicing a particular skill, is what gets you to strength, which is near perfect performance in a given in a given task. And what often happens when we think about, talent is that we think of things that are entertaining or things that other people know how to do, but we don't know how to do. Oh, they're a good singer. They're a good, chef. They can juggle. I can't juggle to save my life. And it's like, wow. And the thing about it is that the reason why we often think this way is because there's no show called America's Got Responsibility. The show is called America's Got Talent. So, so we're thinking about the things that can draw a crowd or are really incredible that say, wow, they'll put me on a billboard in Vegas and people will come see me. But the fact of the matter is that having this deep sense of responsibility, that the tasks that you take on, you have this ownership that no other person has over that task, is actually a talent. And I know we'll talk about it shortly, but even looking at some of the strengths that I have or the strengths that you have, those might be things, oh, I never thought of it that way. But that's why it's important to really think about having conversations with people, or reading material or watching videos or things that really help you to think about the uniqueness that you possess and how you are able to use that to say, wow, I think I'm actually in a better position than I thought to be able to, offer the world or my family or myself these really specific, unique things that I have that can guide me to whatever may be next for me beyond this moment of strain or difficulty.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, that resonates with me, Brianna. Okay, so coach me. I've got values. I've got strength and talent. How do I muster up enough confidence to go for it?
Well, let's see. I guess my question for you first would be, how are you doing? Like when I stop and ask you, how are you doing? There's whatever you're going to respond with will help me to be able to determine like where we might be in terms of what kind of conversation we can have, because the things that you start to share with me that are coming out of your mind first will help me to figure out like, well, what direction might we travel? So Veronica, how are you doing?
Oh, okay. I think that overall I'm doing pretty great. I am in the middle of this very adventurous pursuit with my husband to take 2 months and travel across the country. We set a goal to see all of the national parks. We're 8 years into this work. I don't think either of us imagined that it was a dream that would become this big. So a large part of me is feeling great. I would not be fully honest if I didn't say that there's a part of me that also has apprehension. I mean, I'm in a year of being very creative, building a message, talking to people on a stage in public about my life and vulnerable things like grief and change. And I'm pretty private, so sometimes I feel like I'm an imposter.
Oh,
but I'm, even as I feel apprehensive, I I can't imagine like turning away from this journey. Like I don't see how this is a path that goes towards any kind of failure. I just see that it goes towards something that isn't fully revealed yet. So I think I'm okay. I think I'm feeling grateful and apprehensive at the same time.
Yeah. I love that. And thank you, so much for sharing so candidly, without knowing that that was a question I was going to ask you. I really appreciate wait a minute. I really appreciate that. And for those who don't know, so as a Gallup certified Clifton Strengths coach, there is an assessment that we use to be able to help learn a little bit more about these talents and strengths that individuals and teams possess. And Veronica and I had discussed her taking this assessment. So I'm looking at these results, and it's so interesting that even just hearing how you're responding about like this hopefulness and this apprehension, that is indicative of the way in which your report shows up. And so I just want to share a couple of things with you because I just think it's really interesting. So
Okay.
your top five: strategic, relator, achiever, futuristic, individualization, excuse me. When I look at strategic and achiever, what it says: if at first I don't succeed, I try again. If I try again and still don't succeed, I consider my options and try one. And so what I think is
Okay.
interesting about that is just like, I'm hopeful, I'm excited, but I hear this optimism that comes through how it is that you show up, which really is a combination of that strategic and achiever. So when we look at what like strategic is, what does that mean? I think we have a baseline understanding of like what this word means. But people who have high strategic, they bring creative anticipation, imagination, and persistence. And so they need this freedom to make mid-course corrections. And I'm curious to know, like, is that something that you find to be true in terms of how it is that you often like, look at your work or the things that you do?
Yeah, I think so. Because I wouldn't define myself as a perfectionist. Like I would rather, like if you're talking about a mid-course correction, I'm one who would rather get it started and just figure out enough to get whatever it is going forward and then figure out the next step and modify along the way as I need to. I think that applies if I am Veronica in work or Veronica just out in my life.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it's interesting because that achiever part is coming up too. It's this the get it started. I want to get going. So those who have so achiever, people who are exceptionally talented in the achiever theme, work hard and possess a great deal of stamina. They take immense satisfaction in being productive and busy. And what I think is so fun about that is like the shortened version is like they bring this intensity and stamina of effort, and they need freedom to work at their own pace, right? So this idea of like, okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, but we got to do something, right? And I think that those two things, when you might be, kind of like nervous or trying to figure out like, am I that assurance of like, am I going the right direction? Am I like literally in in your van, like in your camper, or like, is this the right, way? Is this the right way? Kind of like more like, philosophically to like travel. It's more of just like, I just want to do something because there's an adventure in what it is that I'm doing, and I know that I'm going to learn something. And so when I often talk to people, it's like, how do we look at our strengths and talents as a reminder that who I am and how it is that I show up is good. Because oftentimes we're being told that there's like one right way to be able to do something. And the entire research premise of Clifton Strengths, by Don Clifton, who was the founder of the work, was what will happen when we focus on what's right with people rather than fixating on what's wrong with them. And so it's this incredible
Mm.
idea to really be able to affirm in people. the way that you're going about things, whether it be like really, really orderly and very just like step by step, is great. Or if it's just like Panic at the Disco and you're just like doing all things in your own way, that seems kind of like a tornado, but you're getting it done anyway, that's also good. And so what I often like to tell people is like, if the goal is 4, yes, 2 plus 2 will get us there, but so will 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. And that matters because that gives me the confidence to be able to say that my way is helpful. My way is good, but also celebrates in you that your way is helpful and your way is good as well.
Oh, that's that is nice to hear. Okay, so I took this Clifton Strengths assessment and I had to answer, I don't know, maybe are there 200 questions, I think, but it only takes
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
30
It's like,
minutes to
yeah, it's
answer
like,
because you have
yeah,
to choose.
it's a lot.
You have to choose everything. Yes. It's like your gut
Yeah.
response. It
Yeah.
spits
Yes.
back these in order 34 different strengths. And I have to tell you, I saw achiever on there and struggle. Sometimes I feel like the achiever in me is a more of a weakness than a strength, or maybe it's like there's two sides to the coin. So I used to have this job. I was the operations officer for multiple senior care facilities, and it was on call all the time. It was going from one to the next. There's shift rotation, so I was always very busy. And
Mm-hmm.
being busy and being productive, I think, was a part of my identity. And so when I left that work, I wasn't as busy. And in some ways for me that was good because I had realized that time actually is an important value to me, and being intentional with my time and being able to own it without interruption was something that I really wanted to have. But for a long time, the absence of that interruption and the absence of that busyness and productiveness made me wonder if I was being lazy. It made me
Mm.
wonder if like I was not contributing something enough. And so sometimes I like pull myself back into this busy state again, and I have to remind myself that I can be ambitious and rest.
Yes.
And both of those things are valuable. So seeing achiever as one of my top strengths is uh it's a bit of a spins around in my head a lot. It flips me around because I also really do see that as a weakness that I have that I'm
Yeah.
constantly trying to correct.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I, I really appreciate you sharing that. It's interesting because, in this context, it's like, yes, while you do possess this, this stamina to be able to work and have this desire to be able to work at your own pace that says like, if I've got a checklist of 12 things, I would like to be able to, work to be able to complete those as I want to. So that could be within the first 5 hour, 5 hours of my day, or it could be, the first, 2 weeks of the month, whatever. Like, you seem to, have this desire to want to be able to, have this list and do the things without, someone else, telling you that, well, you have to wait on that, or, we can't work on this right now. At the same time, it's not all that you are, right? Like you also possess these other talents. And I think that when we're in, to your point about being in an environment in which there were lots of things to do and you needed to be able to do them, there's almost like this hum of this engine that's happening. Got to do the things. Got to do the things. Like that's great. And that, yeah, now when the hum has stopped, it's like, wait, hold on, like, what else am I supposed to be doing? And I think it's an opportunity to be able to almost, again, going back to that reevaluation of, okay, what else do I want to be able to do? How else can I apply that talent? Because something else that you have that's really high is relator. And relator is to say that you enjoy close relationships, that you find deep satisfaction in working hard with friends to achieve a goal. So what I think, and that's specific to you. So that achiever plus relator, I want to be close with the ones that I care about, and we're working toward something. So that's a different way to say, wow, now that I don't have checklist in the workspace to do all these tasks, I can now almost look to my close relationships to say, hey, like, now let's spend more time, as you're saying is important. So that's where that value is coming back in. But now I want to make sure, if I've got 5 really close girlfriends, did I have an opportunity this month to be able to meaningfully connect with each one of them? Right. So there's an opportunity to still be an achiever, but now we're looking to be able to, how do I translate that into something that's more like meaningful, in that I'm able to, prepare for this trip, in a way that makes me feel confident that we're going to have everything that we need, or being able to, again, be with my, my girlfriends, and not just always with the one, and not, giving a phone call to the others. Right. That, I think, is another way to really be able to think about how do we kind of change from being like human doings to human beings, right? That we're able to say, I now get to like kind of rest in friendship and rest in love and connection, versus just I'm checking off the 12 things that are, work related, as the only way that I can achieve something, a goal or something meaningful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's insight that I would have never put together on my own. And yeah, and I guess I have spent more of my time, I just recently did a series of dinner parties with our closest friends, because we're going out of town, and I found myself like appreciating that I could plan the whole meal and not have the interruption. But I would have never put together that I was actually still achieving as the meal planner. So that's, huh. Okay. Okay, so
Yes.
talents and values really weave together.
They
That's pretty
do.
good.
They do. So when I talk about, yeah, well, I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm like, woo! Like, for me, I'm just like, oh, okay, good job. No, because I think that it really is important. So when I think about who it is that I seek to be, and the work that I want to be defined by, I have this phrase that I've developed called office confidence, which is to unapologetically articulate your professional brand, values, and strengths in the workplace to improve your sense of career well-being. So that in and of itself is like this masterful combination of like who it is that I am. So those values that I have, and how I choose to define, myself through the things that, those boundaries. Honestly, I think that's what values are, through how it is that I show up, but then also looking at my strengths. So that natural way of thinking, feeling, and behaving, are those things that combined can really, help us in the workspace and really beyond. But my work is focused on workspace, to be able to say, here's what I can offer, and here's also what I need in the space to be able to be the best version of myself that we would all appreciate. And I say we would all appreciate because, crappy Brianna is not a good person. Like, you don't want me, in a space where I'm, angry or upset, or being, really, short and not being helpful. And so what I always tell, my leaders and my team is that I need space to create, because creativity is a value of mine. And I recognize that when I'm not, adding my own spin on things, and when I'm not bringing a little bit of, life and joy and color to the situation, that something's a bit off. And so again, going back to Brené Brown, she has this whole activity around values, and we talked about that at first, but the second part is about these slippery slope behaviors. So thinking about one, like, when are you actually living into these values? So now you've selected these values that are really important to you. The other part of that is being able to say, how do you know? Give me some examples of when you were actually using or living into these values. And the slippery slope part is, what are those behaviors that you're either doing or not doing that are showing you that you're living outside of your values? So I know instantly, instant gut check for me, when I'm at work and instead of saying, "Oh, I've got a question," or "Oh, I've got an idea," I'm just like, "Yep, you like it, I love it. Okay, fine." That's an indicator for me that I am not in a space of creativity. That's an indicator for me that something is the matter. So I need to go back and maybe ask for some support from my supervisor to be able to say, like, "Hey, something's not feeling right. Like, can we interrogate this a little bit?" Or even doing that work, with family or friends, or even on my own a little bit, because of the coaching that I have, I can do that. And I say, "Wait a second. Like, again, let's go back. What happened? When's the last time that you were feeling joyful and excited to contribute? And let's look at what are the things that are within our control that we can adjust to be able to get back to that space of creativity and excitement and strategy." Because strategic is it's actually my top, theme, just like it is your top as well. It just shows up differently, but it's just like taking that time to really be able to see, what are those slippery slope behaviors that are challenging why I'm not showing up the way that I want to, and what can I do to be able to, within my, again, sphere of influence, what can I control to be able to make some adjustments and ask for some support?
What can you teach us about courage? And I ask that because it's not one of the 34 strengths. And, I think people sometimes think they either have courage or they don't have courage. And someone once said to me that, being ready to do something is, we say, "I don't feel ready," and ready's not a feeling, it's a decision. Um, but I think that to do this, to find your talents, your strengths, and your values, to align all of those, and then move forward in a way that keeps them aligned, it must require some kind of courage. So how do we do that?
Thank you so much for that question. I cannot say that I am, the expert on, how do we do it, but I'm smiling so big. So I'm just like, I think I might know, right? And it's funny because I think I might know because you articulated something to me one day so well that I was like, this is it. And I literally have this post-it on my thing that has your name on it that says, "I am not comfortable, but I'm willing." And I think that courage
Yeah.
comes from exactly what you said. It is a decision that, if there's a gap between where I am and where I want to be, I have decided that being in this place is not good enough for the life that I want to live. So I have to move. And although I'm not comfortable, I am willing, because where I am right now is not sustainable. And so when we take the time to be able to figure out our talents, our strengths, our values, it gives us a reminder of what is possible. And when I am clicking on all cylinders, or when I've, grabbed that Mario star and I'm the one that's protected, that I could run through things with intensity, with stamina, with excitement, because I know who it is that I desire to be, and or that I already am. I think also that being able to, you know, kind of muster this courage comes from how it is that I have named my business, which is the refining company, because I believe that everything we need is already in us. It's just about unearthing it. It's about digging it out. Like, we have the things that we need to be able to move. You know how to stand up when it's hard. You know how to keep going when you want to just get under the covers and hide. Like, you know how to speak a good word to a friend when they're down because you've been able to do that before, or do it for yourself, or others have, been able to do it for you. And so sometimes when we don't have what we think is the courage or the confidence of our own, we can pull on, notes from others or experiences from days of old to be able to say, until I can walk this thing on my own, I will use something that somebody else has given me that's already dwelling inside. Right. And so I just feel that although courage is not, as you said, strength or a talent that's listed in these 34, neither is confidence. And confidence is not something that we either have or that we don't have. It is something that we cultivate. It is something that we develop by being able to recognize where it is that I've already done the thing. And now it's just clothed a little bit differently, right? Like, I've already had, people that I care about walk away from me or leave me, whether it be in the natural sense or, just like, what is it, like, kind of like philosophically, where it's like people have walked away from me, right? It's like we've had people, and there's this thing where it's like, you never thought that you could live without this person, and look at you still living, right? It's like, I thought I couldn't do it, but I somehow figured it out. And so when I talk to people about, confidence and courage, I have this, like, this 4-step, cycle. I talk about, like, fear, like, we need to use fear. And I'll tell you the R of fear is to ready the receipts. And what I mean by that is to say, there's this cultural term about receipts where people are saying, I've got the evidence. I've got the evidence, or I've got the text messages. I've got the conversation recording, or I've got the evidence. And what courage requires is receipts. It requires evidence. I have done this before. I've raised my children without any help, so I can do this. I've had to move when I thought I was going to live in a place my entire life. I can do this. I've had to have seasons of loneliness or times where I was unsure. I've done it before. I can do it again. Those are the receipts that we can use to be able to say, I'm now building my confidence. I'm building my courage to pick myself up, to be able to move ahead, because right here where I am and where it is that I want to be are not the same. And I gotta go. I gotta move on from this one spot to get to that new spot.
Yeah, that was good. I'm really glad that you wrote that, post it down, so that you could give this lesson to me.
So good.
And now I'm gonna have a post-it by my computer that says "Confidence is cultivated," Brianna Jackson, because that was so great.
I appreciate you for that. I love that. Yeah, I actually used, I have to tell you just real quickly. The minute we talked, I wrote that down. And I had to preach a sermon at my church, like, a few weeks after that. And that was one of the first things I said. I was like, this is really uncomfortable. And I spoke to a woman, and she said, and I brought the post-it and I showed him that. I was like, this is what it is. I wrote it. Well, I didn't bring the post-it, but I wrote it in my notes, and I was like, listen, Veronica said, I'm not comfortable, but I'm willing. It's so helpful. And I really do think that courage, that confidence, they really come from a place of like, okay, this is a little scary, but, like, to your point about not being like that decision that we have to make really can make the difference in how it is that we, even if it's just a tiny, I've been laying down for so long, but can I at least just lift my head? Can I at least just, wiggle my fingers out in front of me? Can I do a little something? And if that's all you can do today, then lay back down. You're fine. And then the next day, maybe I'm lifting my head, wiggling my fingers, and my shoulders are coming off the bed, right? Like, there are just a moment by moment, day by day. We can do some things to help ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. So you said that you have the 4 steps for confidence that spells fear. The R is ready the receipts. Well, come on, what's the rest of it?
You gotta know the other. Sure. So the funny thing is that you've done the F. F is fight battles the right way. And what I mean by that is to say it is very important for us to be able to identify how it is that we communicate, how it is that we show up, and then prepare ourselves for how others show up. So when we're thinking about confidence, we're thinking about, I'm a person who enjoys going on like long, winding stories to be able to like get to the point. You ask me how I'm doing today. Well, I have to tell you about how I was feeling yesterday. So you understand, why today is better or worse than yesterday, right? Other people are just like, fine. I'm like, that's crazy. Tell me more. And so fighting battles the right way is about understanding some type of, using some type of assessment to understand more about your communication style. Anything that you do, I'm really partial to Clifton Strengths because that's the certification that I have. But anything you do, whether it's Myers-Briggs, True Colors, DISC, they all have these 4 archetypes. They all, have these 4 different things. Like you lead from strategic thinking. But there's also influencing, relationship building, and executing. And then there's the strategic thinking one. So there's these 4 things. When you're in DISC, there's the D, the I, the S and the C. When you're in True Colors, there's 4 different colors. When you're in Myers-Briggs, there's 4 different, buckets with 2 in each thing. Identify who it is that you are, how it is that you show up, and then prepare yourself in conversation for those other things. Even though going on long winding stories is my true desire, if somebody were to say, Brianna, please get to the point. If I weren't confident in knowing how to pivot, I would deflate and my confidence would just kind of like pull in my shoes, right? But the idea is to be able to say, I've already prepared myself for the person who wants the data, the person who wants to know how it impacts the people, and the person who wants me to be, too long didn't read. Like, what's the top line, right? I know how to do that. And so that's how I can fight battles the right way. The E of it is to establish your why. So think about why it is that you show up the way that you do. I usually give there's a lot of different, TED Talks or articles or things that I love sharing with people about how it is that they can learn more about why it is that they show up. But that values piece we talked about is part of it. This idea of being able to say I need to be in this room because here's what I believe. I myself believe that all people are brilliant, and with the right tools and teacher can unearth that brilliance to be their best selves at work. That's why I show up with the energy and the intention that I do, because I think I'm an awesome teacher and you want to be in my classroom, right? And so because I believe that, I walk into spaces with this assurance that I've got what you need. So let's just have that chat, right? So when you know what your core message is or your why, then it is more likely that you will again have that confidence start to build about why it is that you should be in the room or why you can ask to be at the table or do the work that you're doing. And then the A is about aligning with allies. So oftentimes, and again, I do a lot of my work in the office, right? That we've got a big presentation to make and we're afraid. We've got some interactive pieces and we don't know if people are going to laugh at our jokes or be a part of our thing. When you can do a little bit of work to figure out who's going to be in the room, I could say, oh my gosh, Veronica's going to be there. Well, we have a great rapport already. So if nothing else, she'll be my one friend in the group. I'll make eye contact with Veronica each time. Or, we could look at that calendar invite and say, oh, okay, so-and-so's going to be there. Let me see who one of their contacts is and say, hey, you presented to Jane last week. How is she? What is she like? Oh, she likes data. I can have my data ready, right? So when I'm figuring out, what it is that's going to happen, and who those allies are, whether that's in the office or in community, I can find my people. When I start finding my people, it gives me, again, more confidence because although those are my people, they also exist in other spaces. And so when I enter a new space, it's like, oh, I heard about you. I heard about you from Veronica. So I'm like, oh, well, we have a good rapport. So I know that Veronica said something really positive about me. So again, we get that energy and that confidence from finding our people, whether it's connecting on LinkedIn or going to just different community groups about grief and loss, for example, or anything else, I could find my folks. So I know that I'm not alone in what it is that I'm experiencing. And then again, that R is really about, there's really twofold on the R. So it's the readying the receipts is like my kind of, fun thing to say, but it's also about research and documentation. And it's that idea about being able to be, I learned this in college, this phrase that I'll never forget, about being a student of the industry. So when you think about wanting to, not all of us seek to be subject matter experts in certain things, and that's fine. But we all do, I think, experience that like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to know what to say when I walk into this room, or, who do I connect with at this, social or this networking thing. When we find like established communications, like maybe it's an article, a book, a podcast, that's talking about the things that are important to us, it gives us, again, language that we can use from other people before we even find our own voice, right? So even going back to the kind of confidence building from other people's words, that's where that kind of shows up, is that when I am, researching, when I've got the Google alert that's telling me about, like, the best new podcasts in the area, or they're telling me about, the hacks for traveling, with family, then I'm able to say, oh, I now have some knowledge I can use to be able to be more confident, and more courageous in whatever it is that I'm working on. And then that documenting part is that ready the receipts part. So really being able to, I'm coming up against a difficult thing, I can go back and look at my notes and say, oh, I've done this before. This is just a monkey in another outfit, right? I've done this before. And so I can use that. And I talk about it a lot at work when we wait till the end of the year to do our annual evaluation, and we're like, oh wait, let me go look at my Outlook calendar and say, well, what did I do in February? And it's December and I'm trying to figure out these things. But when I do that,
Yeah.
when I do it more regularly, when I create a practice of, just like we have this practice, a lot of us now, of like a gratitude journal, what are the 3 things I'm grateful for today? Take some time, if it's not even like every day, but weekly or bi-weekly when you get paid or something, to be able to say, like, what did I do? How did I earn this paycheck? Oh yeah, I had that really difficult conversation with this person, or, I was able to achieve this thing, or all these things. When we are able to record that in real time, it gives us a little bit more fuel regularly to be able to say, oh, I can do difficult things. I can do hard things. And so that fear, that fighting battles the right way, establishing our why, aligning with allies, and then that research and document, or ready the receipts, helps us to be able to build our confidence and courage to be able to go out and do whatever it is that we seek to do, or that people are asking us to do.
I love that. And I love that it spells fear, because you might be starting in a place of fear, but you are cultivating that confidence. You are willing to move forward. And yeah, I mean, I think, have you found in your own experience, did you ever think, oh, well, if I, work on pursuing this, I might achieve X. But then X might come and you had no idea that Y and Z were going to be right there with it. And I think sometimes we don't even really know how to imagine the full potential of what we can get, what we can gain from a conversation or new connection with someone, or just what we can gain from going on that pursuit in our life.
Yeah, I think for me, I feel like there's been a lot of like unintended like consequences like along the way of me just attempting to, create a life that I can be proud of. I think that the goal is always, what I say, like one generation better. Like, there are things that my parents weren't able to give my siblings and I, that I really desire to be able to, give to my son. And, that has kind of caused me to be, I think, a person who seems to always be in pursuit. I mean, even if I just like, showed you the calendar of what was Brianna doing from Sunday, like last Sunday to like this Sunday, you'd be like, oh my gosh, like how do we even have time for this? Right. Because there's always something. But what I realize is that I'm only attaching myself to things that give me like a deep sense of like joy and satisfaction. And I know for a fact that I haven't always been like that. There were things that I was doing to like be seen or to, just, get out ahead because I just wanted to. But as I come back to like, what are my goals or what are my values, and my strengths, it's like, oh, let's put yourself to better use. And so what I'm finding, in my like kind of like pursuit of things is actually just like really, um how would I say it, like just fulfilled like life, and just a constant like reminder of like, oh, like you can do anything you want, but do you have to do all the things? Like, no, you don't. And so I've almost found myself like editing more, and really, I would say almost working in a way that I just didn't expect, which is, again, people outside looking in, I'm like, wow, you're really busy. And I'm like, I'm just like, just like purpose to like do like, very specific things. And they just happen to be on one side of town and then the other side of town. So there's a lot of driving, but I feel that what I'm also seeing in those around me is, and which I think is the unintended part, is that they seem to be doing things in a more purposeful fashion. That I'm almost inspired, like through the way in which I'm showing up, it's encouraging those that I spend my time around to also show up with like more intention as well, which is, I think, a positive, a positive thing. But I think that there have been times in my life where I was like spending way too much time, doing like one thing or another, and I felt like I was missing things like for my kiddo. And now it's like that's the North Star, is like, oh, I need to make sure that I'm available, that I'm present, and it's starting to show up in how he does his work, that it's like, oh, you learned that from me. A good thing that you learned from me is that, that we, ask before we go, or we just do these things like, how does my body feel? Like, am I checking in with myself before? I just don't really think that I really thought that I'd have that impact. And it's weird because it's your child, but I just didn't think that I would have that type of impact on him. He's watching me more than I really realized, in terms of like, oh, huh. Okay, I say that, I do that, and it's like the positive thing, not just like the, oh, don't say that word or whatever. But I think that matters a lot.
That's great. Well, I mean, I feel like we've really just been, they say like you don't want to leave anything on the table. I feel like we've been cleaning up the table. I knew that reviewing the Clifton Strengths with you would also require me to reveal some of myself, but to be a fly on the wall as a listener of this conversation.
I'm excited to hear it back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be some things that I gleaned from it as well. But I think, just real quick, that's the cool thing, is like, I tell people when I'm often delivering this presentation, it's called "There's Cake in the Boardroom," a conversation about maximizing your interactions with your colleagues and leaders. So I'll just give you like a little piece where it's like, when I'm talking about that research and that document in space, is that taking that time to practice with yourself and to be able to actually record yourself and then hear what it is that you're saying. It's like, wow, that was good. I got to write that down. Because we're not actually listening to ourselves as we are doing that. We're just saying whatever we're saying, or we're doing whatever we're doing. But like, where is that review? And so I think the uniqueness that you and I have is that in having conversations like these, that we do get a chance to go back and to listen to the jewels and the nuggets as a listener. But I do want to just encourage, your listeners to do that too. Like, I need to encourage myself sometimes. And so I could say, hey, Brianna, you can do this. I don't know how, but it's going to get done. And just, I could record that and play that back to myself when I need it, to be reminded of the fact that, like, we did this really cool thing. Like, remember on that day you did that thing? I do. Get that feeling, get in that room and get it going. Like, it can do wonders, as silly as it feels or sounds. It really, hearing yourself kind of share some messages can actually be a really good boost to confidence too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I think that's wonderful. So we need to identify our values. We need to identify our strengths, bring those things in tandem so that we can cultivate our talents. And over time, I think that means we will cultivate our confidence. And even if it's scary, we will move forward and grow from it. I think that is the message. Yeah, and that's something that I think we all need to hear.
Agree. I think you summed it up really well. That sounds great.
Yeah. You are a breath of fresh air. I'm so glad that we were connected. And I really did want someone to come on and, help unpack some of this for me. And you've done such a great job. I'm so grateful to have had this conversation with you.
Well, thank you. I'm grateful for the invitation, and I'm so glad that it went well, because it feels like it went well.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna say it.
I think so.
Thank you.
Tell me, where can the listener find you, connect with you online, all of that stuff?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So my business is called The Refining Company. And so you can find me at www.therefiningco.com. And so that is where you can learn more about the work that I do. There's also a contact form there for folks to be able to just kind of chat in and ask, questions, or if you want to get, set up for some support, definitely here for that as well. I always love to share with people that I support both individuals and teams. So when folks are thinking about, doing team building, it's yes, we can go axe throwing and go paint and sip. That is so fun to relax. But when we're ready to get to work and we're ready to bring in strategy, that's when you give me a call. So I'd love to be able to chat about that. I'm not as active on social, but I do have a LinkedIn. And so folks can certainly find Brianna L. Jackson on LinkedIn, or you can also search The Refining Company. And then on Instagram, it's _refining_company. And so haven't posted in a while, but there'll be some new things soon enough. But certainly look forward to connecting with folks whenever they are interested. So thank you.
Yeah, I love it. And I'll make sure there's links to all of that in the show notes. And I'll make sure that there's a link to this Clifton Strengths as well. And I hope that, I hope that people take the 30 minutes to do it and see what they can find out about themselves.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Brianna. I hope you have a good afternoon.
You too. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Compass Stories. I'm your host, Veronica Sterling. And if you've enjoyed this, please subscribe to hear more and share it with others. Thank you for doing so. That's really helpful for me. To learn more about my message and connect, you can find me at www.veronicasterling.com.